Everyone has already seen Across the Spider-Verse. If you haven't, I don't know what your issue is. Who doesn't love Spider-Man? Who doesn't like a good, Marvel hero? Especially this one. Spider-Man in general is amazing. Peter Parker was already a great character. And Miles knocks it out the park. So and one thing I love about these movies is they find a way to kind of pay homage in that respect to Peter Parker. But that's besides the point. I've seen this specific film 4 times in theaters. I'm an A-list member. It's no issue for me. That being said, spoiler alert, I clearly love this film. One thing I loved about it, obviously, the art. Every dimension we go to, when we go to a lot more dimensions than in the last movie, we kind of spend the whole time in the previous movie, we spent the whole time in Miles's dimension, but we know of other dimensions, whereas here we get to actually visit the Gwen Stacy, or the version of Gwen Stacy that Miles knows his dimension. We get to go to, Spider-Man 2099, Miguel O'Hara's dimension, where, the Spider Society is. We get to see a different dimension at the end of the film. We go to Pav's, Spider-Man India, and every dimension is distinctly different. And one thing I loved about it is when those characters go there, you can see how they kind of become one with the art style of that specific dimension, which was pretty awesome. The opening with Gwen, stellar. The music, just the way they set the mood, that along with the kind of watercolor oil pastel thing they kind of got going on with her dimension, specifically the background's changing based off of emotional beats, it really hooked me in. And for a second, I actually thought they were going to bait and switch, and I was like, don't tell me she's the main character of this film. I really thought she was going to be the main character of this film, and Miles was the secondary character. Obviously, that wasn't the way they went, but the fact that that's where I thought it was going, and I was cool with it, let me know, they did such a good job with that opening that I would love to see a standalone movie, or, a movie that focuses more on her. But, I like the Miles as a character as it is, and I liked what it is, but it just goes to show you, the art can really win you over in that sense, because I never really was a Spider-Gwen fan until the last movie, and then this one. I never was really into her line of comics, but I might check them out because of, after I found out that the art style of her dimension is based off of, the book. A popular run of one of, her books. That aside, she was great. Her relationship that they explored with her and, her father, they kind of delved more into her history with her version of Peter Parker, how he was kind of her dimension's lizard, and the drama there. That was all just chef's kiss. Miles, once again, knocks out the park. You kind of see a different version of Miles. Here, he's a lot more confident. It's been a year since Into the Spider-Verse, and so he's really grown into his role as Spider-Man. He's even, one-shotting some villains. As you see, he adapts to spot the main villain of this film pretty easily. Or much easier than he would have had he had the same skill set in the previous film, where he was kind of struggling to even use any of his powers on command. Now he's kind of really making it his own. And that's witnessed no better way than just him swinging. That also brings me to this Pavich or Pabakar. I can't pronounce the name properly, but the Spider-Man specifically from Mumbatan. It's this alternate India. It's Mumbai, New York, or Mumbai, Manhattan, if you will, in this dimension. I knew I was going to love it just based off of, some of the promotional material they have of Pav. And he has the most intricate web slinging. He kind of uses his bangles almost like a yo-yo and a projectile weapon, which is so cool. And he's, only been Spider-Man for 6 months in this movie or something like that. But he's just, very skilled. It seems like every Spider-Man has their own kind of, I guess, swag, style, or, specialty. And for him, he probably has the best, web slinging we've seen, just because of the specific moveset. Hobie, it's interesting that he knew exactly how to tell Miles how to use his powers properly, so that kind of hints, is it I didn't want to make it racial, but it's a thing, the black Spider-Men have, electric powers, or is it sort of he has something different, but similar? I don't know. That's besides the point. One thing about Hobie, just him coming on the scene, I thought he was going to be a character that would annoy me. Because, it was very clear that clearly him and Gwen had some history. I'm obviously rooting for my guy Miles. And so him coming on the scene, and then also just the kind of person he is, I'm all for activism, but sometimes certain people can, really rub me the wrong way, the way they go about it. When they kind of make being, super left their personality. That, but that's just kind of like, I guess the point is he seems to be this character who seems like kind of full of himself. He thinks he knows everything. He's just super alt, but he has a great heart, and he like really looks out for Miles, even though he really has no reason to. He just wants to be a genuine good dude. And that's something that I think is interesting. It's kind of like he's like a Miles of the future, kind of like a big brother to Miles. Not that they have similar personality traits, but just the fact that he knew how to coach him through his powers, or like he can tell like there was going to be an issue with the Spire Society, and he was on Miles' side. It's like I don't know. It was just nice to see that solidarity, especially since with Jessica Drew, the Spider Woman's character, she's kind of more on the authority side. And so it's just good to see some black solidarity. That kind of brings me also to Miguel's character. You understand why he is the way he is. So it's not one of those like, oh, why is the villain acting this way? I don't get it. No, his motivations make sense. He feels responsible for the death of an entire dimension, and he doesn't want that blood on his hands again. He doesn't want to put that on the hands of other Spider-Men that he kind of is like a mentor to. He kind of takes on this like Batman-esque type role. Like he's like, I'll do anything, any means necessary. He's not a murderer, just like Batman isn't per se, but I mean, who knows, actually, to be honest. He's very brutal. He has this brutality to him that's very interesting. If you're like a fan of Spider-Man in the comics, you know that Peter Parker, and Miles to an extent, they always have to hold back because they're usually much stronger than a lot of their villains or a lot of people they face. Spider-Man, obviously, he has super strength, but it's not the power you usually see showcased as much, and there's a reason for that. He's always holding back. But you get to kind of see that, like, power through, Miguel's style of fighting. And also, clearly, if you're going off of the clips from Into the Spider-Verse versus now, he clearly did some bulking up. So that was something. Like, that was a very big surprise, because I remember what he looked like, and I was like, oh, this dude's been juicing. Like, I don't know his training routine. I mean, he was juicing, literally. We see it. But that also brings me to Peter B. Parker. What Hobie calls him, the humbling reality Spider-Man. He makes a reappearance, and I just love how, at least for me, I always interpreted him as almost like a continuation of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. He's very similar in the sense. He has the happy ending with Mary Jane, but it's just like it seems like what the natural continuation of that would be, him having, financial problems, relationship problems, a kid, getting back into that relationship to have that kid, and you get to see the full growth from how he was, where he was like kind of the reluctant mentor, to how he is now, where he was the reluctant mentor who relationship fell apart with Mary J because he didn't want kids, and now it's like Miles being such a great kid and him loving the fact that he was able to have a positive impact on his life, and really help mold him into a better hero and a stronger person. That made him want to be a father. Also made him try to be a good mentor, but obviously there was some shadiness going on with the Spire Society, and I'm curious to see how that would carry out. How much of, obviously they knew, spoiler, that, if things panned out the way they were going to, Miles' dad would probably pass away, due to the, the canon events and whatnot. I'm just curious to see how that relationship is going to be going forward between Miles and Gwen, and then Miles and Peter. I feel like this movie was very Miles and Gwen heavy, just because obviously he's like vocalizing more like his romantic interest in Gwen, or showing it, and that's kind of been the focus. Even when he says goodbye Gwen, he doesn't say goodbye Peter, but I'd really be curious to see like what he thinks of Peter now, or is that not as important? I mean, he is a young teenage dude, but yeah, priorities. Other Spider-Man, I thought it was cool to see like just different types. We had Spider-Man that looked like mechs, or like have robot suits. We had a gunslinging one. We had a hijabi one. We have Scarlet Spider. We have Ben Reilly in this, and he is hilarious. I think it was played by Andy Samberg. He does a fantastic job. It's funny. I don't know too much about Scarlet Spider and how he actually is in the comics, but it seemed like they did a good job of like making fun of his like edginess. I don't know how like big fans of Scarlet Spider will take that, like whether or not they would be like happy with it, or if they would, maybe they might find it distasteful. But I haven't seen any complaints. But I don't know if he even has like that big of a fan base anyway. But he's like the most notable Spider-Man out of like the extra ones that I noticed. They had a T-Rex Spider-Man, which was interesting, a cat one as well. They just kind of went crazy with Spider Society, and even Metro